Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you have heard, I'm Dr. Mitra. And being a doctor by profession, I have the right to be very, very boring. So I would be offering you three choices. One, sleep. Two, snoring. And three, which is going to be interesting, is, a breakup of relationship by the end I finish this talk. I'm sure that's not going to happen. So let's go forward. Uh, Raise your hands. Uh, People who have actually, over the last 2 years, I think 2 years back, had read about a young guy who was sleeping with the dead body of his sister for 6 months. Oh, wow. Lots of people, right? And it was on the news, I think, for a week or maybe a month, and it was local and national too. I am that doctor who actually started from the beginning until I ended it off with that entire family. So it so happened that one day, it was a Monday morning, and I had parked my car in one of the very reputed hospitals of South Kolkata. And naturally, a doctor comes out of the car. You don't expect policemen to come around, surrounding you. And that actually happened. So quite a few policemen turns up and uh, comes running towards me. And are you Dr. Mitra? I said, yes, I am Dr. Mitra. Kind of very curious, frustrated, and anxious too. What have I done wrong to, have this kind of an attention? And they actually understood that I was a bit anxious because you wouldn't expect that in the morning. So what happened after that was they assured me, saying, Dr. Mitra, please don't worry. We have had a morning incident locally for which you're expected to come to the police station and give us your opinion. This police station was only about a 5 minutes walk from that hospital. So I walked down over there and only to be greeted by very, very senior police officers. Believe me, the best of this city were all there, and quite a few of them in a room, and they also didn't connect, and so they offered me a chair and a cup of tea, which I sat down. And then the story began. They said locally what had happened, one of the local residents actually saw smoke bellowing out of a local high rise from their washroom, and they informed the police and the fire services. So both of them, being Kolkata, being early hours of a Monday morning, they being very, very good, they turned up. And they went in and went to the third floor, and what do they find? They find that in the toilet there was an elderly man who's actually being charred to death. He had committed suicide. He had poured kerosene over his head, and he was dead by the time the police and the fire services had gone over there. So that was kind of very gory details which was happening. Now, what had happened after that? After that, the policeman had cleared the room, the fire services had stopped the fire, they found the body, the charred remains of whatever was remaining, and they were coming out. When they saw a young guy pacing up and down in that apartment and muttering to himself. So they went up and asked him, what had happened? Who is he? And this guy couldn't answer anything. And the policeman thought, well, that was the end of it. He must be kind of some crazy guy. So they were about to leave when this guy comes up and whispers, there are more bodies in the room. There are more bodies in the room. Now, I was bewildered before. I think what was happening now is that the police people got bewildered too. They initially thought, I don't think that's true. But they actually, thankfully, they walked in, they barged into another room, and what do they find? They find two beds on two sides of a room, and on one bed, a completely decomposed body with intense stench of what looked like a young woman. And on the other side, there was a bed with corpses of two what appeared to be dogs, canine corpses. And the stench was such, I walked into that room, so it still reminds me how the stench, what bad stench could be like, and it was frustrating and frightening and quite kind of gory and horrific. So then they understood something must have gone wrong. So they picked up this young guy and brought him to this police station, and that was the time when they wanted me to come and assess him for what's been going on, because the guy wasn't willing to talk. As he walks in, this is a guy in his mid-40s, he walks in very disheveled, very poor in self-care. His toenails were outgrowing. He was kind of smelling as if somebody who hasn't taken a bath for donkey's years. He walks in and starts pacing up and down. I put my left hand on his shoulder just to reassure him, and perhaps that was the most reassuring hand he had come across over the last 6 months or 8 months. And he settled down a bit. He sat down to the chair next to me. I offered him my cup of tea, and then he whispered into my ear, "Believe me, I'm not wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. Please save me. I haven't done anything wrong." Then he went on to speak as to what had happened. This is a young guy who is a very talented guy from Kolkata, went into one of the best institutes of India, graduated as an engineer, graduated post-graduation in business administration, goes abroad, starts working, performing very, very well, and then he loses his job in United Kingdom, one of his jobs, and he comes back. There starts his depression. He initially became depressed. He then kind of started taking not care of himself, and lots of things were happening after that. He had even lost 55 kilos. In the meantime, what was happening is that his sister, who was living in the same house, was also suffering from depression, and she forced herself not to eat and basically starved herself to death. So what happened on that fateful day was, see the genetic loading, what genes can do to a family. This is a brother who is psychotic and deluded with the dead body of his sister, who he thinks is going to come back alive if given pizzas and enough time, and an elderly gentleman who in his 70s couldn't take this for any longer than 6 months, and what he does that fateful morning, he goes into the toilet, couldn't take it anymore, couldn't take the stench, couldn't believe in what the brother was doing with his sister, and pours kerosene and burns himself. By this time, there were lots of stories going around. He's a rapist, he's a killer, he's an incestuous character, he must have murdered a serial killer, and all sorts of things. Since then, there has been 3 similar incidences in our city of Kolkata, and that is only the tip of the iceberg. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me, that is the level of serious mental illness which engulfs our society. Now, do we end there? No, not really. What happens? I actually have treated this young man over the next 2 years. Non-governmental organizations got involved. We were trying to help him, and he was improving until one day, again, the genes got the better of him, and he burned himself to death a year back. We couldn't do anything. He was on medications, he was on psychotherapy, he was on social therapy, he was going to various places and doing various things. This is the magnitude of mental illness, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in this society. I actually call it the tsunami of the 21st century. Believe it or no, that is the truth. And everybody is turning a blind eye. Be it the government, be the politicians, be the economists, be the lawmakers. You talk with them, they're not bothered because it doesn't fetch them money, you see. So that is very, very important for you to know. Serious mental illness. Now, do we stop there? No, not really. We have common mental illnesses as well. Things like depression, things like anxiety, things like stress, things like substance misuse. Now, what is substance misuse? People who are alcoholics, using drugs, crack, cocaine, hash, all sorts. Okay, and then the more important and the interesting thing of personality disorder. So what is depression? See, you can have a boyfriend and a girlfriend can have a fight. You feel unwell for the next 2 days. You feel bad, you're crying, you're tearful, and then you bounce back. But sadness needs to be differentiated for depression. Depression is all about a low mood, poor concentration, poor appetite, poor sexual instincts. You cannot carry yourself through. You are unable to do things. You cannot go about your normal job. And that has to persist. And then you can have ideas of self-harm, and perhaps some even go on to contemplate completed suicide. But this needs to be consecutive for 2 to 3 weeks, present in yourself to be classed as depression. What is anxiety? How many of you guys have been in and out of the loo before an exam? Raise your hands. I've just been twice. Okay, so why does that happen? So the features of anxiety are tremulousness, palpitations, breathlessness, you feel as if you can't breathe, you're sweaty, you're having butterflies in your stomach, and then you're in and out of the loo frequently before an exam or before a performance. That is anxiety. That is also a killer. You can have a panic attack. See, at the night when I'm a medical doctor, so I work in hospitals. At the night in the emergencies where patients come in complaining of chest pain, 50% of them are actually secondary to anxiety and panic attack rather than an acute myocardial infarction, which in colloquial terms is called a heart attack. And then comes personality disorder. See, in your locality, you must have found across somebody who is always fighting, who is always cribbing, who's a kind of a nonsense kind of a guy who is always gets himself in a fight and is never happy. Okay, so we all have characteristic behavior. If I were to interact with you, I do it in a certain pattern. If you notice me for a long period of time, you will understand that this guy is kind of blah, 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 this sort. But there are behaviors which is not acceptable to the society. So there are people who actually maims, rapes, murders a fellow person. And those are the people with personality disorder. And most interestingly would be the ones with a potential to crime. So what happens? People start thinking that, oh, there is a rise of mental health problems, so maybe there is a rise of criminality. Ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely not the truth. That is absolutely not the truth. If there was 100 fights in Kolkata tonight, there'll be only one incident where a mentally unwell person is going to be involved in it. The rest 99 will be committed like people who call ourselves, like you and me, normal guys. We are just wicked guys. We are criminals. We get into a fight and we blame it on the mentally unwell people. I want this message to go through because I want you to get the stigma out of the system. Mentally unwell people are not criminals. They commit far less crime than the normal people. So brain, ladies and gentlemen, on the left I've given you a layout of an apartment, and on the right is the brain. See, in an apartment you have got a bedroom, you have got a kitchen, you've got a washroom. So raise your hands who have weed in the bedroom. No? Or, okay, I'll take it the other way around. Raise your hands who have actually slept in the washroom. No? Yeah. You have slept in the washroom. Wow, well done. Well done. Okay, we have got only 2. So what happens? The reason why I put in this slide is that like in the apartment, you have got different rooms for different purposes. The brain also has different places for different purposes. One part of the brain makes you think. One part of the brain makes you walk. The other part makes you talk. The fourth part makes you fall in love. The fifth part makes you, control your bladder. Emotions. So there are different areas of the brain which actually control different things or the behaviors that we display. Brain is an amazing organ. See, so what are we? We as psychiatrists, we are no mind readers. We are no mind readers. So how do we find out who is going to turn out as what? We find out through your actions, a chronology of actions. So we see what you have been doing. We try and assess because what you do gives us the royal road of a mind as to what you are thinking. And coupled with this are these scans. These are very, very fancy scans which are actually now available in Kolkata. If you can see on the left, this is the normal brain. And on the right is a psychopathic brain. These are called functional imaging. Previously, we used to have brain scans, which used to give the structure of the brain. Now we can have the function of the brain. So I'll clearly say, if this part is functioning, in a psychopathic brain, this part isn't. If this part is functioning, you can see the blue and the yellows, this part is entirely non-functioning. And it has been research proven that 11 to 22% of reduction of either volume of the brain or function of the brain can lead to a person becoming an antisocial personality disorder, or what you colloquially say as a psychopath. So how do we transform this into you guys, ladies and gentlemen? So how do you choose your boyfriend or your girlfriend? How do you understand that you're not sleeping with the enemy or a rapist? Do I expect you guys to be running around with scans to your parents? Daddy, daddy, this is the scan of my guy. Daddy, daddy, this is the scan of this girl. Tell me. So what I'm presuming is, the matchmakers, the .com facilities, all these things which you use will be a day long gone. Because yes, you will be doing that. And people like me will be able to tell you as to whether this guy is right for you, whether this girl is right for you, what kind of behavior he or she is going to do with you in later life. So somebody had taught in 1970, a fantastic Canadian psychologist. He thought boys and girls can't be running to their mothers. They used to run with those horoscopes and they used to match and all these things. I think what you will be doing is you will be running around. There will be horoscopes, but in the form of SPECT and PET scans. Okay, so what do you see? This fantastic psychologist devised something which is called a questionnaire. It's a 20-point questionnaire, and I have put on 10, believe me, because if you at all tick positive in most of these 10s, you need to write it down. Young ladies and gentlemen, you really need to write it down. Because if you find your partner positive on all this, that's the door, bolt out, never come back. So it's very important for us to know that mental health, according to WHO, by 2020 is going to be the largest disease burden in the world. And we need to deal with that. How do we deal with this tsunami? My little message would be that we incorporate this into the school curriculums. Because if we help our youngsters to know about mental health, 1, it will reduce stigma. 2, it will make their mind know. So if their mind knows, if their eyes will see. The other thing is genetic engineering and gene therapy, which in conjunction, I think, will put mental health a thing of the past. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.